Well, good afternoon. My name is Catherine, and these are my colleagues Björk and Adam. And we represent Risk Access Consulting, and our expertise evolves around the ethical dimensions of management consulting. And we are here today because you, executive members from Maersk Group, a Danish global shipping conglomerate, have asked us to look into the piracy challenges you face in the Indian Ocean. And what we are here today is to present an independent study of the legal, financial, and most importantly, the ethical dimensions of the challenges and come forward with a solution. So today we present a summary of our findings. And piracy as such is not something new. As you can see on the picture, we're all very familiar with the repercussions of the Viking Age happening more than 1,000 years ago. And the Vikings, they were seafarers. They raided the 5 great oceans, and as they believed that the way to get gold and silver were through raids and not through trade. And does any of you know here today when actually the Vikings stopped raiding?
Did they stop?
The 16th century.
Well, somewhat there. They stopped when they became farmers, merchants, and craftsmen. So when they found opportunities on land, they turned the boat around and settled there. And though modern piracy is somewhat different, they use motor ships instead of oars, they use grenades instead of cutlasses, they tell somewhat the same story. Like their wooden-legged predecessors, Somali pirates are economic opportunists. And once opportunities existed through fishing, but due to increased illegal fishing in the Gulf of Aden, Somali people were forced to find other ways, other means of generating income. And modern piracy victories tell somewhat the same story, or same conclusion at least, that a solution has to be found on land. If we take the example of the Malacca Strait in East Asia, it was only once the Indonesian pirates found job opportunities that were less risky on land, that piracy began to deteriorate. And likewise, we believe that victory at sea requires supremacy on land. And this is what we're going to tell you about today. And we're going to do that by exploring the burning question how you, Maersk Group, can reduce the cost spent on piracy without risking employee safety in the long run. And we will do this in 3 steps. First, we will look into the problem at core, and why this problem is a key maritime security concern for Europe as a group. Then we will look at the complication, more specifically how the legal dependency on the international society creates problem, how the high economic cost of piracy complicates the problem, and how risks and of employee safety is an ethical threat to your company. We will then, taking from this, present a solution to apply APM Terminals, one of your business unit's core competencies, to build a deep water port in Berber, Somalia. This will be a legal concession agreement that takes approximately 30 years. It will be a sound business investment, and furthermore, it will be gain economic benefits to Somali in an ethical manner. If we see this map over here, you have one of the key strategic routes for Maersk Line shipping, going from east of Asia to northern of Europe, passing directly through the Indian Ocean, an area that is as big as the United States of America. This key route presents 20% of the global volume trade of Maersk Line, and is hence a key line for Maersk Group as a whole. It is built on the success of 3 things. First of all, it runs daily. Second of all, it has 98.5% delivery success rate. And thirdly, it employs deep water vessels that is economically sound and provide low cost to your suppliers or customers. And these 3 things are at risk with piracy. It's not economically feasible to go southern of Africa. You have to go straight through the Gulf of Aden. So this is what the problem is at core. And to understand the severity of the problem, one has to understand how your supply chain works. It's not only Maersk Line that is affected by this. The ADM Terminals, which is one of your business units that provides construction of and management of deepwater ports, and Damco that fulfills the door-to-door logistics services, providing inland services, are also hit indirectly or directly of this specific problem. So the problem as it is rather complex, you could say. You have three axes. You have the businesses, you have the civil society, and you have the state. The problem you face at sea originates in the civil society in Somalia on land, and has continuously been tried to be solved on an interstate level by, for example, using armed naval forces. These short-term remedies doesn't provide a long-term solution, because there's a mismatch between where the problem originates on land and where it's tackled at sea. So what we provide and what we feel is important is an integrated approach on land that integrates all three actors and considers the matching ethical, legal, and financial complexities of the problem. These complexities and the opportunities that is at hand, my colleague Björn will now go through.
So thank you, Anne-Catherine. Yes, as Anne-Catherine said, I will tell you about the challenges, but I will also present to you some opportunities that is for Maersk Group we really should go for. First, if we look at the legal dimension, then the legal source you have to look on is the jurisdictional framework defined by the United Nations Convention on the North Sea. This framework is, however, fragmented, it's unclear, and it's outdated. It was made more than 4 decades ago. The framework clearly places the responsibilities on the states. It's states who are responsible for companies, for ships to go safely through the sea. As a company, you have a limited legal scope. When you're sailing through international water, you have to comply to the nation of which flag you're sailing under. If that national laws allow it, you can't employ armed guards to protect your employees. You're also encouraged to use best management practices, meaning putting up facilities that's trying to hinder pirates from going on board. But in the end of the day, you're still depending on the state. The state's action have been uncoordinated, even though that they have actually placed naval forces off the coast of Somalia. It's pressured the pirates to go further east. For example, when Maersk Alabama, which you see a picture of, when they were hijacked in 2009 and the captain was taken hostage, he was not released before US naval forces came and released him. It means, in the end of the day, you are depending on the states. And the question is, how much longer can you continue to be depending on the states? What will happen the day the states withdraw, as we've seen in Afghanistan? If we then go to our opportunity, then we all know the story of Somalia, the tragedy, the civil wars, how Somalia has been unstable for years. But there's actually a turnover now. It's actually changing and the stability is increasing. Last year, all the different clans leaders got together and they decided that they wanted peace. There's been built a new constitution where there's civil rights and where the state of Somalia actually take on responsibility of a basic function that a state must provide. There's confidence in the president. The UN, United Nations, endorsed this movement, the same as do IMF. And there's a number of other states that actually endorse this new movement. It means that Somalia is becoming a legal entity, which it is legitimate to cooperate with. There's right now many multinational companies looking into Somalia. For example, Coca-Cola recently invested in Somalia. And we believe that there's also a legal window opportunity for you as Maersk Group. If we then move on to the financial dimension, then we can see that there's a huge economic burden for you as a company. You have increased spending on fuel because of rerouting or going faster to avoid the pirates, or else you have increased insurance costs, and you have the spending by employing armed guards. All these initiatives are at the sea, on the short term, not on the root causes on land. You only use a very, very small amount on the root causes. If we look into what's actually going on land, then we see that Somalia is surrounded by a whole group of countries which are experiencing a booming, a growing GDP rate. We see that the region is becoming more attractive. We see that multinational companies are investing in the region, and we see that it's changing. Somalia is placed in the middle of this, and you have an opportunity to be a part of this bloom. If we go into the ethical dimension, then it's clear to us that there's a great human cost by piracy, and it's at your employees. They live with the risk of being wounded, being killed, taken hostage. Last week there was 2 Danish seafarers released after 2 years in hostages by pirates. Your employees have the same risk, and besides that they're also living with the fear of meeting a pirate, and their families are living with it as well. How you have responded have been by employing armed guards, and by employing armed guards you risk that you might increase the violence, that the pirates will react more aggressive, and in that way you will pose an even greater threat to your employees. What you have responded with was, as I said before, on the sea. On the land there's another story. There's the story of the root causes of piracy, which upsprings from the coast of Somalia, which is characterized by extreme poverty. They have low living standards, they have a short life. There's no one that chooses to become a pirate. They have to do it. They have no alternative way of living. At sea, they risk to be killed. They risk simply to die because they're hungry at sea. We have seen incidents where the Somali pirates actually attacked some of the naval forces simply because they needed food. So what we think, or we believe for you, is that you have an opportunity to create an alternative to piracy. You can change the game simply by creating an alternative, because the pirates in Somalia will not surrender before they have an alternative. So this means that on one hand you have legal limited scope, as you are depending on the states, but on the other hand there's a legal window opportunity to cooperate with the Somalia. On one hand you have high economic costs, but on the other hand, you have this blooming region full of business opportunities. And on one hand, your employees are at risk at the moment, but you have the possibility to invest in an alternative to piracy. And all this is something we have brought together in our solution, which Adam is now going to explain us.
Thank you, Björk. So, what is it we have here? Basically, as Anne-Catherine explained us a little while ago, Maersk Group, you as a combined group, has the needed core competencies to take on this project. First of all, APM Terminals, your world leader in constructing deep water ports. The force about deep water ports is that the biggest container ships in the world can go into this type of port, which is raising the efficiency, and that is a good thing for the daily Maersk Group. You're using the biggest container ships in the world on the Maersk Daily. Furthermore, Danco, your door-to-door logistic company, is already operating in the region. However, they will be happy to have a higher efficiency. A deep water port will support that. Why have we chosen Berbera, Somalia? Might be a very interesting question some of you have in mind right now. The answer is twofold. First of all, of course, the blooming region, the blooming East African market. They will demand more goods will come in containers, therefore we believe it's a good idea. Second of all, Berbera. Look at the location. It's naturally sheltered, that means having ships going to and from Berbera is actually pretty smart. It's the best location in the Bay of Aden. Furthermore, Anne-Catherine also mentioned this is an integrated approach. By that we mean you need to have social empowerment. You need to have the social society and the local government, as well as the international society, that could be NGOs and private partners, taking part in this. If we look at what we think each partner should contribute with or bring to the table during this process, I will start with you as the company. Maersk, what will you do? You will of course construct the deep water port through APM terminals. Furthermore, you will of course make sure that it is functioning and that it is facilitated right. You already have that know-how. The local society or the local community will of course be the workforce in this deep water port. They will also be needed to partake in the projects surrounding the deep water port, because local embeddedness is so important when doing projects like this. Finally, you have to set standards to the Somali government. They must partake in this project. This is not philanthropy, this is a project. They will have to partake in Coast Guard security, as well as infrastructural aspects such as roads, water, you name it. Furthermore, of course, interesting international business partners will be needed. One of them, who is already in Somalia, is Coca-Cola. Others are to be mentioned. Also, the society, that would be, for instance, the UN or NGOs having the needed know-how on how to construct schools or something like that, will have to be present in this project. If we then look at what we expect you to gain from this, the first very important thing to mention is that not only you as a company will gain, but the entire society and the greater good will gain from this solution. You as a company will of course gain the main thing for us being here today, employee security at sea. If you're able to reduce piracy, the employees on your ships will be secure. Furthermore, you will have the strategic access to a booming market. What will the local community gain? Well, I'm kind of like already have said it, due to the fact that they will be the local employments, the local workforce, they will get jobs, they will get the opportunities to piracy. Furthermore, they will of course get increased living standards, which is in deadly need in Somalia at the moment. If we look at what the state will gain, they are of course also benefiting from this solution. They will have the possibility of being recognized internationally by having a multinational company doing an investment project in their land. Furthermore, they will of course gain access to the global markets, which will help them further on. Bjarke explained us earlier that you have increased cost to fuel due to the fact that you're sailing faster due to piracy. If we use that as a term, you will also be able to do environmentally good. If there's no piracy, you'll reduce the speed of your ships. Reduced ship speed will reduce the use of fuel, which will of course reduce the CO2 emissions. You will also be able to help out with global trade, which is, as we have heard, challenged by piracy. Right now, I guess some of you might be thinking, how should we as a company be able to do this? Isn't this taking on too big of a project? Well, let me just remind you that you're already doing stuff like this in many places in the world. Up here, I've taken two examples of what you're doing. In Angola, you decided to start a drilling project in one of your sub-companies doing oil drilling. You were met by a legal claim of having 70% of the locals hired in your facilities. You have actually, instead of going around this, decided to work with it. So right now you're educating local people to be highly equipped staff able to do the drilling process, and you're getting very close to your target. Furthermore, in Nigeria, you built the Ibecc terminal. Here, you created 2,500 jobs in your deep water port. However, you have calculated that you will gain indirectly 32,000 new jobs. That's massively in a country like Nigeria. You have also very high standards regarding corruption. And we must not forget that we are going into a high-risk area and are doing an investment project. However, you're tracking how you're doing. You have set high standards regarding corruption and facilitation payment. And you're actually doing reports due to the UN Global Compact. Finally, of course, what about the money? If we look at the investment, it's a $750 million investment. However, the net present value of the base case, using a 60% likelihood of happening due to the market share you will be able to take in this new region, you will have a net present value of $155 million in 30 years. It's the standard length of a concession agreement on building a deep water port. So by that, we are actually saying that APM Terminals can use their core competencies to build a deep water port, run it, manage it. Furthermore, you will actually help out the local community and the local government. So just by using your core competencies and do business as you normally do, you will see a massive ripple effect that will affect throughout the entire process and help a lot of stakeholders. And Catherine will now go through the implementation and the risk mitigation.
Thank you, Adam. Well, as Adam mentioned, a 30-year concession agreement is a fairly long time, so it requires some planning. And we sketch out 6 key stages that we consider you have to go through in order to make this a success. First of all, it's important to get a concession agreement with the Somali government. They've already shown keen interest in working with international partners in building a port in Berber, so we foresee that this can fairly easily be done within 1 year and you have the signed paper. Secondly, there is the needs analysis. We already done one, but a more thorough one needs to be done to analyze what are the needs surrounding the port, the maritime hub. This will also identify the project partners and how to collaborate with them throughout the project initiation. Then there is a train of local staff. Adam already mentioned this. This is key to success of the project, as they will probably highly likely take 70% of the workforce in the project. Fifthly, there is the construction of the deep water port, and we know from similar cases in other regions and in Africa that this takes roughly 2 years. And this will leave you with the 6th and final step, the port management. This is where your business will flourish. This is where you will start to generate revenue. And this will take up to 2045, where of course it's possible to either renegotiate the contract, think about expanding, and so forth. So, with such a high period of time, there comes high uncertainty. And with high uncertainty, of course, there are some risks that needs to be considered. We identified 6 key risks, 4 of these which needs your immediate attention. Firstly, of course, there is the piracy attacks in your port, which is highly likely and will have a big impact on the construction of the port. However, through the collaboration with the Somali government and international community like the UN, we believe that this is something which can be mitigated fairly easily. Second of all, there's the corrupt government officials. Though you might sign an integrity pact, which we will definitely recommend that you do, there might be lower level corrupt officials that will try to take facilitation or use facilitation payments. However, looking at the track record, as Adam said, within corruption, this is something that we believe that if you keep your standards high, as you did in the Suez Canal, where you actually stop facilitation payments. You set the standard, and then in the end, they change the practice. So we believe that this will be possible in Somalia as well. Thirdly, there's a lack of local ownership. Adam already mentioned about this, but of course, by having a project that engage multiple local partners and employ a local workforce, this is something which will be mitigated. Fourthly, there's the lack of local expertise, and this is something which we've seen in the other African projects that we carried out. But we believe that, as was seen in Nigeria, this is something where you can train the local staff and fairly easy build up the expertise by on-the-job training. So, with that in mind, What we've told you here today is that you should build a deep water port in Ibecc, Somalia. This will address the root cause, not only by lowering the financial costs, but most importantly, by keeping your employees safe. It will be a sound business investment for APM terminals, but it will also provide strong ripple effects to the Somali economy and the region as a whole. It will create jobs, it will provide infrastructure, and it will provide opportunities for new business investments. So what I leave you with here today is that we believe that anti-pirate victory at sea will be obtained by building a deep water port in Ibecc, Somalia. And with this in mind, we now leave the floor open to any questions you might have. And of course, we will be more than welcome to work with you in the future when the implementation starts.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm really hung up on the risk involved in working with a government in Somalia that is relatively unstable. And you did provide us with some information about the increase in stability, but my understanding is there's still some stability issues. You acknowledged that risk, but said that you think it could be mitigated. Can you tell me how that would be mitigated specifically? What would the people be doing with the Somali government to try to mitigate the risk of dealing with corrupt officials and trying to make the Somali government do what they say they're going to do?
Well, So we already talked a bit about this, and let me tell you what can be done. Maersk is a shipping company that has a really strong track record within anti-corruption. They have a whistleblower system, and they have trained currently on a year-to-date 25,000 employees in anti-corruption management. That is managing facilitation payments, how to react once you meet a corrupt official that tries to want to do any briberies and so forth. So we believe that by keeping this strong track record and working with the employees and the local workforce, this is something that can be mitigated. Of course, it can never be eliminated completely, but it's something that we believe, looking at the other projects in the African region, that's something that definitely can be mitigated. So that is through training and through having a whistleblower system and so forth.
Stop. My question is, do we need a port there? Are we building a port there to mitigate these factors? Or do we need a port there and the benefit is that we kind of mitigate some of the piracy?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
Well, if we look at this map here, we can see the west coast of Africa. All the orange dots are where you have deep water ports. If we look at the east coast, however, it doesn't look that covered. So, taking that the Daily Maersk is actually passing by there and would be able to load and unload containers on a daily basis, 24/7, 365 a year. I guess it's a very good idea to have a port located there. So of course, from a strictly business view, yes, we should have a port here, or you should have a port here. And the ripple effects is actually the benefit of the icing on the cake. You should of course focus on your core competencies and build that deep water port, and then harvest the fruits of the ethical aspect as well.
Two questions. What ethical problem are you trying to solve?
I can take that one. Our key focus is to actually increase the safety of the employees. That is the main thing we are here to do. We think that the human cost of your employees is unacceptable. So that is the key focus. But when we are talking about ethics, it's only an extra benefit and extra advantage that you also have the possibility to change this life for Somalis. but also the countries or the population surrounding Somalia, because they have also been hindering in actually gaining an economic growth, because businesses are afraid to invest there, and because tourists are afraid to come. So it's only extra plus.
Yeah, very good answer. Can you go back to the map that was up there?
In the beginning, or
Yes.
Terminals in Africa. You're showing terminals on the interior of Africa. Do you really have terminals, land terminals?
The places
Where
there.
are the red dots, I think is what he's asking.
Yes.
The red dots, that is where Danco is operating at the moment. So it's Danco hubs. That would be loading and unloading. Sorry, I should have explained that before. That would be unloading and loading of trucks. So that's all. It's the inland service.
But they're actually missing one red Dutch, because Damco is already also somehow operating it in Somalia.
Dirk, I'm really tired of this nonsense about pirates. Why don't we just use drones and kill them? It'd save us a lot of money. We don't have to worry about building a port in an unstable, failed state, and that will keep our employees safe.
That's mine. Okay. Who excitement would we have to kill those people?
Drones
Controlled by who?
by Denmark.
Okay. And do you really think that's the best way of solving the root causes?
Yes. Get rid of the
So-
pirates, you'll get rid of piracy
So when will the pirates stop being pirates?
when they're dead.
I don't think so. You will keep having Somalis being hungry.
Well, those will be the good Somalis.
But how long can you stay a good Somali when you're hungry? I believe that if you just try to kill them all and eradicate them, they will keep up blossoming. Also, as we have shown, you have actually been able to use the naval forces to hit strike and really kill the pirates. And it has been a massive success. However, piracy has just moved around to other places in the Indian Ocean. Therefore, killing them might not be the right solution. Or I would say it isn't the right solution. It will just flourish somewhere else.
I'm still wanting to know if you, to answer my colleague's first question, is why would I build a port in an unstable region? But that's, but you mentioned some other statistics about the company, but one of my concern is you said it. You said that we have a moral or ethical duty to protect our people on the boats, right? Why are we venturing off into a country that doesn't like us or doesn't even care? The government shifts like the wind. Is that our responsibility, or is it the protection of the people? And by the way, these people that you talk about, they're well read risk. We pay them very well. So why not have the more guards, have the protection? Or I'm not saying eradicate with drones, but that's a good idea. I mean, I didn't think about it. It would actually be cost effective in the long term.
Yeah. Can I answer that one? Could you find the other case? So I'm going to move in a second. I think that was actually several questions, and I would like to ask you answer your last question.
Well, it would be the primary one is focus just on the protection, as you said, of our personnel, not venturing off and propping up and building a city and trying to build into a country where we'll sink into the sand. It's the protection of the people.
Yeah. Let me tell you, in the beginning, and Catherine mentioned the Malacca strike. And actually there, 2 decades ago, also 10 years ago, there was actually piracy going on. And a huge amount of global trades go exactly through here. But they tried to fight it with warships, with armed guards and so. But actually what happened was that piracy didn't end before Singapore, Malaysia and Indonesia went together and actually created a Coast Guard regime, but that was not enough. They actually also invested in ports in Singapore. And what happened now is that Singapore is actually one of the global hubs. They actually started to create this whole new economic boom surrounding these countries. And that is how they stopped piracy in that region. And let me add one more thing. If you look at Somalia, then we have in our research talked to leading industry experts. We have talked to Somali experts, and they have actually confirmed that they are confident with the Somali government at the moment. And you have already yourself made the risk assessment, stating that it's okay for Maersk Line to sail to Somalia through Venus, and it's okay for Damco to operate in Somalia. So you actually accept this as a company.
Well, I'm a little confused. If I want to protect the people on the ships, I don't necessarily protect them immediately by building a port and having it in operation sometime in the next 30 years. Those people are still at risk while all the negotiations and the construction and the development of the deepwater port. So your long-term solution is one thing, but there's no short-term solution for protecting the employees of our line. That's number one. Number two, I understand what you're talking about where you want to locate the port. But you also say that what you're trying to do is take away the economic incentive or opportunities for the pirates by building into the port economic opportunities. Are the pirates in Berbera, or are the pirates in Mogadishu, or some other location in Somalia? I don't see the effect that you're trying to achieve in the short term, and I don't see the location of the port being of any long-term effect if the pirates aren't there.
I can take the first one. If you go to the slide showing the NPV presentation. If we look at it in a financial matter, we have actually been very conservative in calculating the net present value. Let me remind you, it's a 30-year concession agreement. If you look at the assumptions, we have only added the $150 million once during that 30 years. You're spending $150 million each year on fighting and preventing piracy. So from that, I would say that a conservative estimate like that one is actually taking the short-term remedies into measures. We are not trying to move away armed guards to stop having your employees insured by next year or by the next 2 years. But of course, we will look into, if you're interested, how would it look like if we could prevent piracy, say, in 10 years? How would the figures then be? So we are not moving away the short-term remedies.
Can I have the first slide for the solution? Then I will answer question 2. You're right. The pirates are not located in Berbera. They are actually located, if we see here. But the place in Somalia that's most stable, it's placed up here. But right now, the pirates that are placed here, they were once fishers. They actually had fishing boats and so. And at the moment, they're starting a number of fishing projects, one by the European Union, another one by a group of Danish companies, which Maersk Group yourself has participated in, where they're actually providing the pirates or the cities with piracy with equipment again. Their problem is that they actually lack equipment or possibilities to ship the fish out of Somalia. They don't even fish themselves. So they actually have export opportunities if you build a port. So the reason why we place it there, it is because we actually think it's unsafe to place it on the other side. So it's the safest place. And still we think there will be ripple down effects. So it will also get to the coast of Somalia, the southern coast, where the parachute is actually placed.
One of the problems with going last is everyone asks all the good questions, unfortunately. But I think when I was looking at your risk slide, I think this has been touched on a little bit, but I want to go a little deeper into it. So, putting on my CFO hat for a second, looking at the risks, perhaps the greatest risk is the risk that we've seen manifested already, which is a failed Somali state. I like to think of it as the libertarian paradise of Somalia, and it's what you get when you don't have a real government. Now you say, and this is recently you said there are consultants that say that the new government is likely to be successful, but this is a 45-year plan, and if I'm investing a great deal of capital into a 45-year plan, that gives me 45 years for the possibility of another failed state. And in that section of Africa, that is not at all unlikely. So I guess my question is, how do we have any certainty, and so I guess the risk analysis I would suggest is, your WACC is probably way off because this is a much riskier project because of the possibility of a failed state.
The WACC. Yeah. Well, you can always argue about the WACC, and that's correct. But looking at how the WACC has been in the container shipping industry, normally it's 7.5%. I agree totally with you that having money invested and borrowing money for this project, especially because it's a fragile state, is a risky business. However, we have calculated that a 10% WACC is actually safe, what we call sane, so to speak. So, of course, we will look into the WACC issue with you if you're interested in it. I'm ready to pull up my model and change the WACC so we can look at the consequences. But right now, I guess it's a little beyond the scope.
And Catherine, I'm very impressed with your slogan that victory at sea depends on supremacy at land, on land. Now, if I'm a pirate, I agree with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take over your port. And the victory, the supremacy on land at that port is going to guarantee my victory at sea. I will become a land pirate.
It's just a standard criminal.
I'll take your trucks.
That's right.
I'll control your port. I'll shut down all of the transportation because I can make a lot more money doing that than selling fish.
Well, you will have a very hard time entering the port as a pirate because there's already a lot of security enforcements within the port already.
Oh, so you're okay with killing pirates?
No, but you will just not come in. There is control of entry persons and vehicles to the port. There are radars and so forth and staff patrolling in the port already. And of course, when you have an investment like yours, there will be needed more security. And that's something that's part of the investment and it's part of our calculation that more security will be needed when the port construction begins.
Do you guys have a problem killing a pirate?
I think that's mine. We have had,
It's not one. I'm asking because it's a coup. Do you have a problem killing a pirate?
as your consultants or
I can't see the difference whether being a consultant or being myself.
Let's just say this: if there's a pirate and it literally comes right after you right now, do you have a problem picking up a gun and shooting a pirate?
I don't have a problem fighting criminals with the best mean at hand. But I do have a problem with keeping on killing just for the sake of killing, just for flying around with my drones that the Danish government apparently has sponsored. So as a person, yes, I think if you have the possibility of changing the game, you should definitely change the game. But right now, it looks like it's the best short-term solution. But let's stick to the root causes and try and prevent them.
Is it really? If the pirates are economic opportunists, and you're asking us to spend $750 million to $1 billion, why not just bribe the pirates? not just give them the money?
But then you give incentives to others to become a pirate as well.
Yes.
But they'd be our pirates.
They'd be our cops on the take, if you will. Why don't we just give them the money?
The Danish government tried that.
Did it work?
They actually hired pirates back in the days to work for them. The Danish king Christian IV did it. However, it backfired. One day, his ship was loaded with enough gold for the so-called pirates, or state pirates, to attack him. They killed the entire ship, stole the gold, and started working for the sweet king. So, it's not the best solution to that.
And I think there is an important distinction to be made by short-term remedies and long-term solutions. And I think that's one of the key, you can say, arguments that we have. Of course, you'll need to have short-term remedies and have armed guards in the short term to secure your employees, but at long term, it's no solution. At long term, you need something that is more viable and that will decrease the cost that you're currently spending.
On that note, we're out of time on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get feedback from the judges, I want to share with you a true story. A friend of mine works for Human Rights Watch in New York City. And in her second week on the job, her telephone rang. It was a Somali pirate calling, demanding $100,000 in ransom. And here's this young woman frantically waving for the attention of her supervisor to pick up the phone because there was a Somali pirate. And she tried to keep this guy on the phone, saying, well, who are you holding, and where are they from, and what are their names? And she's frantically writing all of this down. And finally she said, well, why did you call us? Well, because we want money. But we're a non-governmental organization. We're a charity. We don't have any money. He hung up on her. She's the only person I know who's ever gotten a phone call. Anyway, true story.
I thought it was an excellent presentation. Did a number of things that I really liked. One of the things you did was a good use of considering your audience and telling us as board members of this company how right we were in doing these other things, and this is just another one of those things we're going to do that's so right. And that is a very persuasive technique to use. And you did that not just once. I think there were 3 different occasions where you emphasized that. Well, you're already doing this. This is how brilliant you are. This is just an extension. So that was really good. All of you, I thought, were very well-spoken, good eye contact, good use of your visual materials. Also, I really liked the part of your presentation where you not only told us what your recommendation was, but you gave us an outline of the first steps of how to implement it. And I think that's important too, because again, you're considering your audience. You're going to be watching this thinking, well, how the heck are we going to do that? And it's a good use to say, here's what you would, here's the steps you would take. So I thought it was really good.
Thank you. I like how you guys stood your ground. I mean, you really stood your ground, and you could feel a passion in what you're saying, which, does leave a mark. It's like, wow, they really are passionate about that. And then, having all those slides for question and answer on the right side was brilliant. I mean,
Absolutely.
Just seeing it, if you didn't even use it, just knowing that it was there, it makes me feel like you guys have everything covered. Like, we could spend a whole day asking me questions, and you could go, well, I have a slide for that. Here it is. So, yeah. But I mean, having that visual up there just gives that perception that you guys have it covered. So, very good job.
Yeah, not much to add in a way. Very well done, very well polished, well researched. The slides at the end, I think, was a real stroke of genius. Shows a lot of anticipation, you anticipated the questions, visuals, data. Very positive. I think I don't know if we're allowed to talk about other presentations, but really, really well done. The only weakness I saw was brought up about the short-term solution, but that's a business issue. But the presentation and the work by all of you was really well done.
As you could tell, I tried to get you to panic, and you didn't. You did. I'm confident that you will be fabulously successful, all of you. One very tiny suggestion. I was focused on you, and you did a beautiful job, all of you, talking to us. You didn't read. You knew your material really well. I didn't know when to look at the slides. If you were on that side of the room, right next to the screen, then you could just point to what it was, and I could see you and the slide in the same vision. It's a small point, but stylistically, when you're close to the material, I don't have to hurt my neck going back and forth and not knowing if I look at that, am I going to miss something that you're saying? Small point, fabulous job.
I have to say, having done this for a few years, a number of years, I love the slides. Especially the fact that you had faded I think it was the first, second slide. So my attention wasn't focusing on the information, it was what you were going to talk about. And as you went through, it was beautifully laid out. I think I almost fell out of the chair when I saw that you pulled up and had that other material.
I thought
That was beautiful, a really great job. And yeah, once my colleague asked about the drones, I had to come and rattle you. I wanted to see how, and I saw divisions because you guys were looking at each other, and then you looked at them and you came after me. I know you did. I was surprised you didn't jump over the table. But I wanted to see how well you were able to handle somebody who was coming after you, asking a question, because I met these colleagues today. We had lunch. But I guarantee you, if we're on a boat and somebody comes up and attacks one of them, and there's a gun, there's probably not going to be too much hesitation. Or one of your colleagues. That's why my question was, what would you do? But that's a hard question. And I'm looking at it from the safety of the individuals of the here and now. And I love the project. I like the idea of the long-term strategy. But I think my issue is, first of all, is the region ready for that yet? Is it ready? It may be growing and the GDP may be moving in the right direction, but it is, I like it. I do love it, and I love your presentation, Sally. Thank you. Outstanding.
very, very, very good. I pulled up some slides in answer to the questions, and I quickly thought to myself, I must have been asleep. I don't remember those slides from the first part. And then I realized that you had anticipated some of the questions, at least material for some of the answers. And I thought that was just perfect. Just absolutely right. I was blown away. I compliment all three of you on your articulateness, very, very direct. I like the way you looked at your audience and looked at the people. Like the eye contact. And like some of the others, I was very impressed with the fact that you really didn't get rattled at some of our off-the-wall questions. And I think that will do all three of you well in your professional careers. Thank you for your presentation.
Again, I get to go last.
You should switch places.
There's very little I didn't like about this presentation, to be honest. I've been racking my brain to try to come up with something negative to say, but I thought that from a substantive standpoint, it was innovative. Most people, in trying to solve a problem, try to pull harder on the solutions that people have already tried, but you pushed the, I think it was pushing the string and taking a systemic view, which I thought was really, really good. Like everyone else, that slide, by the time you got to the third slide where somebody had asked a question and you had, we got a slide for that, you feel like if you got any objections, you should give up because you've already got them handled. So, other than liking your hairstyle, I don't, I don't have too much more to add. So, very, very well done.